So we're back here on the Duncan Duo Show. We're going to talk next. If you're in our area, maybe you're here for spring break, which I know is starting, or spring training baseball, which I know is a big focus right now. We have a lot of family and friends in town right now going to the Yankees spring training, to the Phillies, to the Blue Jays. So if you're here for spring training right now and you love Tampa Bay and you're maybe thinking about buying a vacation property, or you're in Tampa thinking about buying a vacation property somewhere else, maybe you want to buy something out on the beach or somewhere else in Florida. We're going to talk next about some steps to buy a vacation property, some things to consider. And I think the first thing that you have to decide when you start looking at vacation property is it going to be a second home? Like, are you going to use it a lot or not? Or are you buying it for purely rental purposes? So are you buying it to put a long-term tenant in there? So the differentiator is an investment property or is it a vacation property? And I think that's an important thing to consider, because there are differences. There's differences on the financing front.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's, the main differences, two big differences are, investment properties in general have higher interest rates and require a larger down payment than a true second home / vacation purchase.
And I think that the definition of how far, there's a bunch of different loan programs to determine how far away the property needs to be and what the indicator needs to be for it to be able to be used as a second home. I know we've had customers that are, that live in Tampa, for example, and they want to buy a second home on the beach. And there's, that can generally happen. It's obviously a little closer than most banks like to see because they're so close, but it can be explained.
Yeah, I was going to say, if it makes sense, then yes, if you live in downtown Tampa, for instance, and 20 miles away, which is the beach, it would make sense.
Correct.
You want to go there on the weekends, you want to spend time with family, so you could sell that to an underwriter.
I think, and then of course so if you're buying it as a vacation home, that's obviously an option. The second part of it is how much income do you want to generate from it, if any? Are you purely buying it for your own use and your family's use and not to rent it out? If you're thinking about renting it out, whether short term or Airbnb, VRBO, or anything like that, you really want to make sure to look at the HOA or condo docs or the local municipality. So we cover a really broad area in Tampa Bay, so we've got lots of cities and lots of counties, and all of them have different takes on the tax ramifications for if you short-term rent out a property, and then some of them completely forbid it. There's stuff on the beach where there are little communities on the beach that completely forbid anything less than a 30-day rental. So you got to be really cautious to make sure to work with an agent to help you find that, and to know what those, what those limitations are. You also want to talk to your accountant. If you're buying a vacation home, you want to look at what the tax the tax benefits and obligations and consequences are. And I think you want to determine where you want to be. Do you want a beach house? Do you want a lake house? Do you want a cabin? Where do you like to vacation? Like Robert would probably buy a property at Disney.
I knew that.
I mean, I just know I follow guys that sell houses on Instagram, or guys that, what is it? Guy that sells houses. At Guy That Sells Houses on Instagram. You can follow him on there. And when Robert goes on vacation, it's a Disney vacation.
He's been there once or twice.
Yeah, once or twice a week.
So. I feel like I want to go. I don't love the beach. I feel like I'd love to go like the mountains or something like that.
Because we're here.
Yeah, and with 3 kids, it's
challenging
right
now. Yeah. I think I'm the same. I mean, I think because we live here and we're used to the weather and we can go out and get the sun anytime, the beach isn't as appealing to me. I think if I were to buy a second home, it would be somewhere different than Tampa Bay. It would probably be, maybe a cabin, or maybe something out of the country. Maybe something in the mountains.
I think
or something like that.
I think it depends on the spot you are in life. It's obviously with kids, it's a little different than if you have older kids or if you don't have kids at all. So I think it is about how often you're going to use it. I mean, is there any kind of different financing requirements? And maybe there's a real answer and a not real answer as far as if you are going to rent it out short term, because you see so much of that now, like Airbnb, VRBO.
Right. I would say if you're purchasing it as a second resident, but you're really intending to rent it out.
Mike, I'm going to say Mike's going to. So what Mike was saying right now could get him in trouble.
Right.
So I'm going to save him from getting in trouble because I do not have a mortgage lending license. But I think what we're getting at is that, so Mike, I'm protecting you right there. I think the reality is that if you're buying it as a second home and you're going to decide after closing that you choose to VRBO or Airbnb it, that you probably should just buy it as a second home and not really talk about the income at all. That was a politically correct way to put that, you know. So, but the reality is that's the challenge. If you start talking about that it's an investment property, the lending stuff is going to change, and of course it also I remember seeing something in a customer. There was some sort of concern a customer of ours had a couple years ago in some of the loan documents about using it for personal use or renting it out. And I think there was a certain percentage that it had to be, a percentage of it had to be their own use for it to be considered a vacation property. They could generate income from it, but it had to be below a certain percentage of the amount of time it got used. And if it was below that percentage, then it was okay, and they didn't need to say anything. If it's above that percentage, that's a different scenario. But I know there's some lenders that have that as a determining factor.
Well, and for insurance as well, for your homeowner's insurance, one of the questions, from my understanding, that a lot of agents ask when you're purchasing it as a second home or vacation home is, how much time do you intend to use it yourself?
Correct.
Because that can affect your insurance costs.
Interestingly enough, the insurance, there's a differentiator with insurance, and Richard from Artisan has come on and talked to us about this. A lot of people assume when they're buying a rental property that the insurance is going to be more expensive, and it's actually less because they don't have to cover contents.
Exactly.
So, but with a vacation property, if you're furnishing it and you're putting your own contents in there, you probably, you don't want to insure that, as a rental property per se, because because of that reason. So the one thing I would tell you though with insurance, if whatever you're doing with the property, I would tell you to disclose it to your insurance agent so they can put you in the right product. The last thing that you want to do is say that you have it's a second home, and you got it all over Airbnb, and you got 87 reviews on Airbnb, and it shows that you rented it out 197 days this year, and then you have a claim because the tenant floods something and does something crazy, and then your insurance company goes out to investigate, and they find out that, oh, this isn't what you described, we're not going to cover your claim. So I would just tell you that the difference in dollar amounts between some of these policies is very, very minimal. Do not think that they're going to come back and it's going to cost you thousands upon thousands of dollars more. It's best to just be completely above board with your insurance agent so they can put you in the right product, so that if you do have a claim, you can actually get it covered instead of them denying it because you lied about your use of the property. So, that's always, an important part of the equation with rental property or vacation property. Another thing I think that is really important, so if you're here and you're looking at Tampa Bay and you're thinking about buying an investment property, we'd love to help you. Reach out to us at theDuncanDuo.com. If you're listening to this, on your way to spring training this morning, go check out our website. We've helped lots and lots of people, hundreds of people through the years buy second homes and vacation properties. But one of the things I also think that's important is you want to make sure to vacation where you're thinking about buying a vacation home first. Right. We've had people that have bought, family members, that have said, man, I really think it'd be so cool to own a vacation property in Montana. So they go out and they buy a property in Montana, and they haven't really visited it that much. And then all of a sudden they're like, well, we visited once a month for 6 months and we hate it. We're selling it. Which, hey, as a realtor, we love you. Thanks for the business. But the reality is you want to have a few vacations there first before you go and buy a vacation property. The other thing that I think matters, when you're looking at the vacation property is or second home or whatever it is, what your end game is, how much you are going to use it, and really looking. We have it happen all the time. We had somebody a couple years ago buy a vacation property, and they said, well, I really want to take my family. So they bought this great big house on the beach, and they were excited about it. They want to take their family out to the beach all the time, and they had a 15, 17, and 18-year-old kid, and their whole purpose for buying this great big house was for their family. And then the kids went off to college,
right?
And he's got this great big house on the beach, and he didn't have the kids around anymore. So kind of do a little bit of logical thinking about, is your family do you need that much space? Are that many members of your family really going to use the property that often? I think another thing I see people do with vacation properties is over-improve them. They spend too much money making them perfect when they're not going to spend that much time in them anyway. It's probably more about the location and the space and just having a place to go. It doesn't have to have the perfect kitchen. It doesn't have to have all the stuff your normal residence has. You can probably go a little more low-key with renovation, not to overdo it. So a lot of people make that mistake.